if enough of us were looking in Denver or looking at Cheyenne Mountain, would they do it? If enough of us say it's not going to be a nuke, it's going to look like a meteor, they're going to fake a meteor, they're going to do it directed energy weapons, will they do it? What's his name? Just said he isn't going to run out of Utah. What? Yeah. Okay. So why did he do that? Because enough of us are looking at him and saying crime, crime, crime. Okay. So if that, and look at what's happened with the mother weffers themselves, the level of degradation is huge. The last conference.
This is a panic move that they have to play. They have to play this card. They have no choice.
Right. Now, it could be stopped, okay? Not necessarily by you and me directly forming a huge mass of people that are all looking at the same place, but maybe because we all get excited about something like this, maybe because we're all psychic and we're feeling something coming like this, our white hat guys pay attention and go do shit, okay? So this is kind of like the quandary that you faced the other day when Carrie was hitting you with that mackerel. All right, because she was saying that, you know, why didn't the interceptor platform stop it? You know, why didn't the military stop it? Well, we don't have interceptor platforms, that for one thing. But I know, guy, I know. But anyway, though, but you see my point here, right? I don't know if this has to happen. If it happens, then we must be moved by universe to fight fiercely any psychological stuff that comes on out, because maybe we'll break them right there. Maybe so many people will know in advance that they're going to fake up a meteor that when they come on out and say, oh, look, Denver airport just got hit by a meteor, everybody and their brother is just going to erupt and it'll just be a giant riot on the internet and the planet and so on, and we'll get rid of them all.
Wouldn't they have to use the MSM to bring forth this problem? In other words, problem, reaction, solution. So wouldn't they probably a month before the meteor hits start putting it out on television and saying, ooh, it's coming, there's something? Or was that?
There's already been 2 of those.
Really?
Two new objects in our solar system, one from about 3 months back.
I remember Lester Holt talked about a mothership that came into our solar system.
Yeah, that's and beyond all of this, the space aliens and all of that, but I'm saying that there's 2 rocks they've identified. So maybe they've got their candidates lined up, right?
Wow. So we could be looking at some kind of catastrophe that's going to surpass 9/11.
An attack. It's not a catastrophe.
An attack that they'll blame on nature. They'll have to blame it on nature, like some outside God, whatever. That will probably be an event that happens before April.
Yes.
That's what we're not psychic. We're just saying this is our.
No. We are psychic. Everybody that gets on the internet and just types shit leaks out language because they're psychic and they don't have any other way to get it out. And I pick that up. And also, I talk to people that know they're psychic, that have routines, that have rituals, or in the case of like the remote viewers, that have rigid protocols, that have formality, and that are successful and have a huge track record. And the psychics are saying some shit's coming at us. Now, I'm going to talk to Dick Allgaier tomorrow afternoon, and he'll put it up on his site at some point, right? And he will show his drawings and these kind of things as to what he's got on this. And you go watch that, and then maybe you're going to want to interview Dick Allgaier and talk to him about that from his viewpoint, right?
Did you make that connection?
Yes, I will. I will send you email. No worries. I'll tell Dick, etc. Okay. He's in Hawaii, so you got time issues. So you need to personally ask him questions about what he saw, the formal, how he did it, etc., etc., so that you will be assured, as I am, that that he's in essence validating what I'm getting numerically. So bear in mind, what shocked me was not any particular kind of language coming through. It was the numeric sums that I run every damn time on this language in order to get the delta of the release versus tension to see if we're going to go into a building tension period or if we're going into release. Now, if I were to say it, I would suggest that an 81 level of a release value would last about a year.
Could it be a coronal mass ejection? Could it be a solar flare that they blame it on?
Might be. I don't know what they're going to pick, but they're going to cause it.
Because I've just seen some news on that,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
action, and so maybe they use that.
Okay, see, that's a little difficult. And so here's their real problem. All right. So think of it this way. If they use a directed energy weapon and slam into Cheyenne Mountain or any place in the United States, continental United States, right? Doesn't matter where. But if they use a do and they do that, then what's Putin going to say? What are all these world leaders going to say when these fuckers say, "Hey, it's a meteor"? Putin's going to say, "No, we didn't see anything coming in." All these other places are going to say, "No, it's no meteor. We don't see shit coming in. You guys are lying." And Putin, he's based. He'll call them liars to their face, right? And all of us, and see, now we're at that point where they probably, in my estimation, are having ambivalence about every single move they make. And something this large is going to cause them many repeated trips to the toilet as they ponder this, right? Because it's going to release their bowels every time they think about the potential blowback on this, because it's so vulnerable to their psychological operation not working. And here's the thing. So you're a professional fighter. Have you ever had any fights that were not in a ring, not supervised?
Yeah, many.
Okay, so you know the feeling then as the situation evolves into a fight and how the language builds up in tension. And then at some point, it's no longer language, it shifts over into the physical, right? Okay, at the point that it shifts over into the physical, that's the point at which we enter into an area of the unknown. We don't know how it's going to come out, right? But we know that two things about this. There's going to be that the fight is ongoing now, and that the outcome is irreversible. You can't stop the fight in the middle and everybody go back to their positions. It's not organized that way. But so you will feel that issue of change, that state of flux go through your body. And I bet you felt it in your gut. You would feel a little bit of butterflies before you started getting moving, right? As the language is rising. Okay, so that's what's affecting them. And they've got butterflies like mad because it's going to be irreversible once they do it. And with an 81 value on my metrics, and that would go for a year, imagine what would happen. That would go for a year if we had enough normies that believed them. If there was enough control mechanisms that they could put in. What would be the other side of that 81 value in release language? Hang them.
Right. Which is going to happen anyway.
But no, there's that option. Okay, what I'm talking about is lynch mobs. Now, so I grew up in the South. Okay,
build the streets. This will be the big one.
Right. So if they do this and they're not able to get enough normies to stifle the rest of the opposition to all the bullshit they're putting out, because they need a certain mass of normies to be able to stand up to the rest of us saying, hang them, right? And if they don't, they'll be pulled out of airplanes. Their limos will be stopped on the road. People will decide I'm an assassin, I'm a hitman, and maybe they won't make it because of the security and so forth. But imagine Bill Gates being, having his security people having, that's going to freak that motherfucker right out.
They'll quit. They won't put their life in danger that much. They'll be done. He'll be on his own.
Okay, so there's the problem, guy. All right, so it's estimated that 1% of the human population at any given time is a psychopath. Okay, so we have 311 millions in the U.S. That means we got 3.11 million psychopaths. So there's a lot of psychopaths. They don't react the way that, and then there's this other group. It's estimated that there's 3% of the population are sociopaths. And a sociopath, he'll go along with the psychopath. The psychopath, right? But the sociopath, they're not wedded to this ideology that the psychopath has, and they'll flee. So I agree with you. Those people would not put their lives at risk. But I bet you Bill Gates got his security people out of that 3.1 million psychopaths. And so they would stay to fight just because of the fight, you know?
They're not.
Yeah. Well, no.
I get it. I totally.
Yeah.
It's the same cartels.
Exactly. And so So under those circumstances, you would have fierce fights from the security people around these individuals, right? But they would get whittled down, and eventually they would be. And so that's what they're facing. And I think that there's a couple of people at the head of the cabal that recognize this, that they're about to reach a point of uncertainty, and that scares the absolute crap out of these guys. Now, me, as I say, I'm a shaman. I live in a world of uncertainty. I harmonize with uncertainty and irreversibility. So I don't care if my day gets disrupted and stuff intrudes and there's new actions. Okay, I had plans, but the universe decided otherwise, right? And so I'm cool with uncertainty. These guys are very, very, very rigid in what they want to accomplish, how they think their lives exist, and they can't.
Rituals and these types of ceremonies is to control their circumstances so they can control and stay on that rigid
control. And so I surrendered all control when I was a kid and I got into paranoid schizophrenia, right? You can't control shit at that level. So universe taught me to not care. And so I can do things that are seriously impossible for all of these other for these psychopaths, right? They have to have the control, and they would melt down and just, you've seen these kind of people. They just in like the tranny fa, right? If something is out of their control, they just have a fit. They just can't do anything.
Correct.
Right? This is where we're at now. So, in my opinion, all right. So, sometime back, maybe, okay, so shortly after our last conversation, I went into hiatus, right? This is where I have internal things I have to do. And so I don't do videos and shit, right? I just do my audios and just let it go at that. Couple of Substacks occasionally. And so maybe I was off for 3 or 4 months here this time.
Well, for me, you were gone for over a year. I missed.
Well, there we go. Okay, so it's been a while. I hadn't really thought. I've been working my ass off, dude. You wouldn't believe what I've gotten into.
I knew you were going to come around again.
Yeah, exactly. But so I'm surfaced here, and now we're ready to go on this. Now, our enemy's ability to control us is fading anyway. I think some of the people up there know it. How desperate that's going to make them, I don't know. Will they be act out of character, so to speak, and put themselves in a situation where they deliberately invoke the uncertainty? That's my big question here. I'm of the opinion that we will still get, because it's in the data, that we'll still get the 81 release value, even if they don't do the op. All right, even if they don't hit us with the directed energy weapons, there's reason to suspect that will occur, not because of my stuff, but because of Dick Allgaier and his stuff, right?
Arrest that maybe creates that.
That would do it, right? And so if you had that level of action, if we had, the midnight arrest, the night of the long knives, that kind of thing, that would create the release language, and that would propel it forward some number of months. Wouldn't go for a year though that way, because it wouldn't be under control. They wouldn't be hyping it and keeping us unstable and so on. We would come to recognize it, we'd come to grips with it, we would internalize it, and then we'd go on. So maybe that 81 would, if they did the night of the long knives and arrested all these fuckers, and then we had trials and stuff, might go on 6-8 months. But it's not going to be the
as well.
I'm sorry.
That could kick
Correct.
it off.
Correct. So that's the quandary we're at. What are we looking at, right? Right now, my mind, as well as Dick Allgaier's and his people, think it's going to be an attack. Can we change the future, though, right? An individual can change their own future by their own thoughts. Can a collective of individuals change the collective future by a collective thinking about things in a certain way? That is unknown. That's our point of uncertainty now. And so it may be that if we got enough of the population, and we have no idea how much that would be, but if we got enough of the population to think about this and view this ahead of time, that it would actually prevent them from doing it, because they would be singled out ahead of time, everybody looking at them, and they wouldn't be able to feel comfortable doing that. It's going to put them in a world of hurt, because they've got to do something. There will have to be some reactions there. But I don't know, Guy. I mean, my stuff I've always thought was um,
So
open. It was malleable, all right. But Dick and these guys in the remote viewing, they get images like so. Daz remote viewed the Lahaina hit down to the coastline
oh
a year and some months ahead of time.
my gosh, that's incredible. And what is he seeing as of right now? He can't pin.
I'll let Dick talk to that. He's part of Dick's team. I don't feel comfortable. I'll talk to Dick tomorrow, but you should ask him that because he'll have drawings and all kinds of stuff to show you, right?
Me and so we can all maybe do a roundtable together. Are you
Sure,
comfortable?
sure. Well, okay, I do that, but I just intrude. You really need to talk to Dick, right?
That's fine with me. However you want to set this up, I'll take the torch
I'll,
and run with
right. I'll send you an email today, and you can start negotiating with him, and I'll put in a word for you that he should talk to you.
Thank you so much, Cliff.
Sure.
So we're in it. We're heading into, I guess, what we could say a massive event that's going to have a release. So it's tension and then release, tension and then release.
Right.
Looking at right now, we're tension and we're going to come into a release, correct?
Correct. And then here's the thing: when we change, right? When people in the U.S. are seeing that we're winning the war, and we'll use a metric here. Okay, you and I will have a little temporal marker here. Okay, so our temporal marker is when Kerry Cassidy calms down. Okay, so when Kerry Cassidy calms down, that's a shift in a different way, and we're going to have building tension dominate from that point on. I shouldn't get on her case, you know.
That's actually a good marker. All right, I'll go with that.
Okay, so when she calms down, from that point on, we're in a period of time where building tension is going to dominate, and that's good because we'll have questions about our uncertainty about the ability to rebuild. So we'll have building tension as we go about rebuilding the country, right? And so
Uh,
we're getting close, dude. We're getting real close.
Cliff, thank you so much. You are always a pleasure to have on my program. Please come on more often, please.
Well, now I will be able to, right? I mean, so when I get into these, so I've investigated a lot of stuff and I've done a lot of research for a lot of people, including myself. Now, with some of the research I was doing for some of the people led me to examine some of my own thinking, and that's why I had to take off such a long hiatus because I had to get deep into it, and I have yet to reveal a lot of the stuff that I've come across. Okay, so I've gotten into shit that you just won't believe, dude. So I found some stuff in Iranian literature, or not Iranian, Persian, and it's even pre-Persian because it wasn't Persian, the nation state. It was just the people living there that are talking about the period of time where the Elohim, the space aliens that are in the Torah, they're behind the Old Testament, where those guys had to change their command and control structures in their mind to machine software. Okay, so they had this machine. So it's my opinion that the Elohim came down here to capture humans in order to jack us into these machines and make, because they don't want their minds operating these machines. I don't think their minds can do it. That's another issue. But anyway, so they come down here, they get us, they get all these people, and then they jack them into these machines, and you run these machines. You are the spaceship's control system, and that's how gross this is, right? It's not a pleasant thing to work with these people. But at some point, this ancient society that lived in Iran made notes that they knew that the Elohim had to change the command and control language. Why? Because there was a revolt. There was a rebellion among the humans. And what had they done? They had allowed us to control all the machinery in their entire empire. We were controlling their water pumps, their heating, everything through our minds in this mind to machine interface. We knew the control code so well that when we revolted, everything shut down. What do we call this? What do we call this story today? You know this story. What do we call this story? What I'm telling you now is the root of a story that is so fucking famous that you knew it when you were 5 years old. The Tower of Babel.
Oh wow. Yeah. Okay.
That's why
Interesting.
the confounding of the language.
Wow. That's incredible, man. So that was the end of so we destroyed the program ourselves.
Correct. And
They're
okay, so
realizing that we had control of their, I guess, of their equipment through our minds, and we revolted and just
we shut them down, right? And that was the point where they had to go around and slaughter humans like mad. Okay,
there again, kind of. We're at that point again in humanity.
right. We're fighting the same enemy in a sense. The L may still be here in Antarctica. They may be on the moon. I don't know about that, right? But I do know that the mother Weffers worship the L as Satanists worship Satan. Okay, they think of the L in this exact same way that a Satanist thinks of this image of Lucifer.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Oh,
That,
also, by the way, the Bahopmet, the image, the horned goat, and the, all of that, and the fingers and stuff. Yeah, that's the L. That's what they look like.
wow.
Now,
Jeez.
now the good news. Okay, we're winning. Okay, we're winning everywhere on all different kinds of fronts, little tiny bits at a time. And every time you take a little bit of that foundation away, their footing gets more unsure. Just today, we learned that Washington State University, the doctors are no longer going to prescribe drugs. This is a big operation east of the mountains here in my state. The fact that that university's doctors are freaking out to the point where they're not going to do it means it's just the first in a whole series of dominoes. Pretty soon, all these hospitals are saying, fuck, no, I'm not going to do that. Now, okay, so some of this, I don't think that this actually had anything to do with Washington State University, but I got contacted by a guy that said that some of the he was a doctor, and I won't say anything at all about him, but some of the doctors he interacted with had heard somebody, I think on the Woo circuit, talking about the future retribution against these guys. And so they were getting paranoid about their own patients coming back later to off them.
Yes, we've talked about that. Because hello, that's going to be an obvious response. That's going to be the most obvious response. Any doctor that's administering this shit, you better know there's going to be one person at